I am not very good at taking notes during a game. I'm pretty good. I follow my own ideas from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master when it comes to game prep. I go through my 8 steps. Sometimes I'll throw steps out if I don't need them. I do all of the things that I have been advising are all things that I do. I don't really have advice for, and I haven't really put out advice for, nor am I particularly good at taking notes during a game or after a game. And yet I think it's actually really important. I think that taking notes during a game and taking notes after a game are really important things that we should be doing. And I asked people on YouTube about this. I said, and I kind of posted a comment up on YouTube saying, hey, what are the kinds of notes that people take? I have some ideas, and I'm going to talk about my ideas of what are the things that we should be taking notes of during our game and how can we take those notes. But I wanted to hear what other people had to say. And I got, it turns out I didn't see common patterns. I saw a few small things, but I didn't see really common patterns for the kinds of notes that people take. So this particular video, I am curious about your take on it. Like I'm going to throw some ideas out there, but these are not hard rules for taking notes during a game. This doesn't come from decades of experience having done it well. I'm exploring this topic and I want you to explore it with me. And we're going to talk about it, and I'd love to hear comments. You can send me email or you can put comments up on YouTube and I will read them. Can't promise to respond to all of them, but I definitely want to hear more about your experiences on what's really required when taking notes during a game. My initial thought was that the only thing we really needed to take notes on were names. Names of NPCs that came up during the game that we hadn't already kept track of. Who are these NPCs? What are those names? Now, that is really important for me because I suck at remembering names. I'm just really, really bad at remembering names. And when a random name, I'm good at coming up with them because I've got random lists in front of me that have names in them, and I'll come up with a fun name and we'll all go with it. And maybe we even together modify the name a little bit and come up with something. But then I have that name and boy, I will forget it seconds later, like literally seconds later. I don't remember. I'm like, what was that guy's name again? And only if one of the players happened to jot the name down do I remember it. Or if I'm like, oh, it was that random name right there. So boy, during the game, for me, I think it's really important to write down the names of improvised NPCs. That is a really critical thing for me. I've heard other people that say that they don't really have trouble remembering the names, but they have trouble remembering the context of the NPC. Who are they? What did they want? What were their mannerisms like? What kind of accents are weird? Like when you role played them, what were some of the traits that you used to role play them? Those sorts of things they might not remember. I'm usually pretty good at that, or I kind of don't care and I just come up with those things again later. But the name is not something I can improvise. Like I can improvise the rest. I can sort of bring them back in again. And I don't think my players care too much, and I don't care too much if like the accent changes or certain things change. And usually once I remember the name, I remember what they wanted. I'm usually pretty good at getting in the heads of NPCs and sort of running, role playing with the NPC off the cuff. But I can't remember that name. So really, when we're talking about the important things to take notes of, it's the things you're not going to remember. What are the things that you need to remember that you're likely to forget? Those are the things that we want to take notes on. And that could be different for all of us. That could be different for any of us that are thinking about our notes. Like, what are the things that we are not likely to remember? I'll give you another one that I'm often really bad at. Where did the game end? A lot of times I forget where the end scene was. And if I ever need something to help me roll into my prep for my next session, it's, well, where did it end? Did it end in the middle of a fight? Were we about to enter a dangerous room? Like, what happened? And for me to sit down and at the end of the game, when the game is over, just one sentence saying the characters ended walking into the great big silo that's headed down beneath Iron Fang Keep, right? Bang. Like, okay, now I remember where they are. The characters were just entering the chamber that contained one of the elven spheres that was keeping open the portal to Marrow with the intention of destroying it. Bang. All right, I've got it. So writing down those, where the session ended, I think is pretty critical for me. Those two things, if I don't remember them, I'm in trouble. If I don't, and I've had this happen where I don't remember where a game ended, or I think it ended in one place and it turned out it ended somewhere else. And like I prepped a game and then I went there and like, oh my God, we were either 2 or 3 steps ahead of where I thought we were going to be, or we're in a totally different place. And I had to like really run by the seat of my pants to get us back on track to make my prep worthwhile at all. So those to me are critical ones. Anything that happened with the characters that we're not likely to remember, is something that we want to write down. Again, I really feel like we should be focusing a lot of our attention on what happened with the characters. And this could be everything from like, what did they pick up when they leveled up? What magic item did they just acquire? Was there any kind of interesting character arc? Any kind of campfire tale? Those are valuable pieces of information that the players are going to remember because they're about their characters. And if we keep those in mind, it makes that first step from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master much easier, which is character connections. If we remember, oh, that's right, we had the campfire tale, and during the campfire tale, one of the characters talked about how they were really eager to like get the hell out of a big city full of ghouls, while another character is like, I don't know, as a paladin, I feel like I'm in my element. I feel like there's no better place for me to be than in the center of a city full of undead as a paladin, because I can do more good here than I could anywhere else on the planet. That is an interesting like piece of character information that we want to write down. So I'm saying character info, but this can include everything from like leveling abilities, magic items they picked up, any sort of evolution of their character arc, any intelligent magic items. I like intelligent magic items to me are like the NPCs that just keep on giving. Like an intelligent magic item is a really great way to like have this direct relationship between the game world and the character directly that I really love. And so anything involving those intelligent magic items and remembering who their intelligent magic items were, I think is really good. Campfire tales are a good one. What do I talk about with campfire tales? So campfire tales, I'm still refining exactly how to do a campfire tale. Campfire tale is essentially like when the characters are taking a short and long rest. It's a prompt that you can ask the players to learn more about what their characters are thinking. And you want to offer, instead of just saying, look, what does Bruno think right now? That's not a great prompt, but a prompt could be, how does Bruno feel about where he is in the current situation? Or what events does it remind him of the past? And I don't have a perfect thing, but what I'm trying to get to is like, with a campfire tale, I want to learn more about the history of the character and how that history relates to what they're doing now. It's that same sort of like, where have you come from? Where do you find yourself now? Where do you want to go? Almost like job interview questions, right? These can be uncomfortable questions for players. I'll ask them and I'll get like, deer in headlight looks like, I don't know. And so you don't want to jump them with it. You don't want to surprise them. You kind of want to talk about and explain what you're talking about. And then maybe have somebody jump in and then go around a table and have a list. Like if somebody has an idea, they can go with it. When it works well, and it generally does, even if it's a little uncomfortable and weird at first, it generally works well because you learn what the player thinks of the game, what the player's thinking about their character, what the character is thinking about with their interaction in the world. You're sort of diving like 2 levels deep. You're learning about the character and their relationship with the world. You're learning a history about the character, motivations of the character that you might not have picked up on. But also you're learning a lot about what the player feels about the game. So it's a little bit like Stars and Wishes, but it's Stars and Wishes from the point of view of the character, which gives you this really rich amount of information. And you might only get that in 1 or 2 sentences. Really, really valuable. Totally not valuable if you don't write it down. If you're not keeping track of that stuff. And this is actually one where I was pretty good at it. That when I ran campfire tales like this, I was pretty good about writing this stuff down. But boy, it's really good to write campfire tale results down, because then you can look at those at the beginning of your next session, and maybe every time you're prepping a session, take a look at what those campfire tales were and ask yourself, is there any sort of hooks into this campfire tale that the character gave me, or any sort of information that I can give that can kind of make the player enjoy the game more and kind of bring the character deeper into the world that we're going on. So I think that adding campfire tales is really, really important. Keeping track of loot could be something that's useful, but one of my tricks is I try to make sure that the players are keeping track of loot. I do sort of have an unwritten agreement that like I will hand out the loot, but it's up to you guys to decide who gets it. And if you lose a piece of loot, you lose it, right? Like if you didn't keep track of it, you lose it. I actually think it would be really valuable to assign a player as a quartermaster. In a couple different groups I have, one of the players has said, you know what, I will keep a spreadsheet of all the treasure that we get and who picked it up and when. And that's one of the things they do. Boy, players who are willing to do work like that are like gold. They are so useful. The same players who keep track of the notes during the session, super, super valuable. Players that are willing to keep track of the loot and who got what and keep that sort of quartermaster inventory of stuff, really, really valuable. So that's something that you can actually kind of set up in your session 0, or maybe have a couple of people, or even have like a shared spreadsheet. Like you could have like a shared, Google Sheets where you're keeping track of that so that some other people can add stuff in as they go. go. And that way you can kind of keep track of loot as it goes as well. So what are some of the things that we probably don't need to take notes on? One of the whole principles of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, of being a lazy dungeon master in my mind, is we refine things. We're not just about adding new work to our plate. We're about taking work away. So what are the things that we sometimes do that we don't need to do? And I have a couple of thoughts on this. One is a question came up on, should you be keeping track of what secrets you revealed and what secrets you haven't revealed yet? I actually don't worry about that because that's not something I'm likely to forget. Or if I do, it's not a big deal. So when I look at the 10 secrets that I prepare for any given session, sometimes I'll check them off just to help me when I'm taking my notes. But I don't check them off in order to kind of keep any kind of big database of secrets so I can know, these are all the secrets that were revealed and these are all the secrets that I haven't revealed yet, and I'm going to make sure to reveal those secrets. Because I don't remember them. And guess what? You don't need to remember your secrets. They're important for the game at the moment. They're not always that important for the history of the game, and they're not necessarily that important for games in the future. If they are, you're probably going to remember them. And if you're probably going to remember them, you probably don't need to write them down. So I actually don't think it matters that much in keeping track of secrets and clues, particularly which ones you revealed and which ones you don't. I really feel like that when you start a new session off, you can go back and look and be like, what secrets did I not? I use this as a lazy technique, not as a better way of keeping the game on track sort of idea. Is I will look back at old secrets that I didn't reveal just so I don't have to write down new secrets again, just to save myself a little bit of time. But a lot of time when I look at the old secrets, I go, well, those aren't relevant anymore. They don't matter anymore. The world changed, things changed, the perspective changed, the characters went in a different direction. So now I need new secrets and clues that are based in the context of the next adventure that are going on, not the ones that were important for the adventure previously. So I don't think it's that critical to, in the middle of the session, at the end of the session, to be writing down, keeping track of your secrets and clues. Something else that you probably don't need, I think kind of the big story elements, big beats in the story. The question is are you going to forget those big beats in the story? Sometimes I'll do it where oh yeah, the characters sent an NPC off to go back to their home base. I want to remember that. I don't want to forget that they did that. So I'll write that down. So there are definitely times where specific sort of instances of things that you might forget that you think would be fun to bring back up in the game later. Those could be fun things to write down. But I think kind of the bigger story elements, we already sort of know those, or the world is going to be evolving anyway. I don't know that those are the critical glue that we need that sits between the session we ran, the session we're running now, and the session we're running in the future. I don't know how critical that is. I am sure there are GMs who keep track of tons and tons of stuff in their notes, and they really want to have this perfectly woven tapestry of continuity, and that you need to take a lot of notes in order to keep that tapestry of continuity down. And that's great. And if it works for you, that's fantastic. I'm much more of a loosey-goosey GM who just kind of lets things go, and I fly by the seat of my pants, and continuity is not the most important thing to me. I would like to remember little Easter eggs when there's an NPC characters really like that. I think is an important thing to note, but that kind of gets into that writing down the names of NPCs and stuff like that. So there's just a few thoughts about the kind of notes that we can take during our game and after our game to kind of help us help our future selves with the prep for our next session. If you happen to be like me and you're running more than one game, it can be really critical to try to write down the information that you have going on between sessions, or the information that you need to prep your next session from your last, or if you have, more than a week or so between sessions, it can definitely help. And there's probably more things that I am forgetting. This is not an exclusive list, not a totally inclusive list of everything that you should be taking notes on, either during the game or after the game. But I do offer up that think about the kinds of things that you feel if you didn't have, the game would be worse. And then think about the stuff that you might be taking notes on that you think, actually, I don't really need to worry about that so much, so that you can focus on the notes that really help you run your game. These are the things that help me with my game: writing down information about improvised NPCs, writing down where the game ended, and focusing on new information about the characters that I learned during a session that I think can help me bring those characters back into the session. I hope you enjoyed this show. If you did and you want more stuff like this, the best thing you can do is subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. Like last week, because I missed the show, I published a newsletter version of this show, but I also post a weekly RPG-related article that has links to all of the other work that I do, and you get a free adventure generator for signing up. It's absolutely free to sign up. You can also become a patron of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to all kinds of tools to help them run RPGs, access to exclusive adventures, previews of upcoming work, Uncovered Secrets Volume 1 and 2, the City of Arches source book, a dedicated Discord server, the monthly Q&A, tons and tons of stuff that you get for being a patron of Sly Flourish. You can also, if you sign up at the Hero tier, you get another weekly podcast called Sly Flourish's Readings and Reflections, where I read through my latest article and then reflect upon what went into the generation of that article, other ideas. It's sort of a director's cut of Sly Flourish. It's really cool. People really like it. Check that out. You can also pick up any of my books, including Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, Lazy DM's Workbook, Lazy DM's Companion, Forge of Foes, Fantastic Adventures, Fantastic Lairs, Fantastic Locations, Ruins of the Grendel Route, T-shirts, cups, mugs, a mug, the name mug. Thank you all so much. Have a great day and get out there and play an RPG.